Welcome into Locked On Knicks. Alex Wolf here, breaking down a little bit of a freaky Friday for your New York Knicks. 130 to 126. They lose to the Spurs in overtime. And yet, tons of great stuff happened for this team in this game. Jalen Brunson sets a new career high with 61 points, almost breaking the Knicks single game record. Donte DiVincenzo breaks the team 3-point single season record. Just a bizarre night. I'm getting into it next on Locked On Knicks.
You are Locked On Knicks, your daily New York Knicks podcast, part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
All right, welcome in to Locked On Knicks. And today's episode is brought to you by FanDuel. Make every moment more. Right now, new customers get $200 in bonus bets with any winning $5 bet. That's $200 if your bet wins. Visit FanDuel.com/LockedOn to get started. And I want to thank you guys for making Locked On Knicks first listen today and every day, whether you're checking us out on your favorite podcast platform or taking in sights and sounds on YouTube. We appreciate you making us a part of your daily routine. Make sure you hit that notification bell on YouTube or the auto download function on your favorite podcast platform so you never miss an episode. Of course, after you subscribe in both those places. I'm Alex Wolf. I'm editor-in-chief of Knicks site The Strickland, which you can find at thestrick.land. And your New York Knicks lose 130 to 126 to the San Antonio Spurs. And again, weird night in Knicks history, because a lot of history was made on a night where the Knicks ultimately didn't win, which was unfortunate. You never really want to see a game where one of your guys has his career scoring night upended by getting beaten by a low win lottery team. And yet that's where we found ourselves, with Jalen Brunson scoring 61 points, Donte DiVincenzo breaking the single season 3-point record for the Knicks. Both things that should have been crazy celebrated, and yet unfortunately a little bit dampened by the fact that the Knicks wound up losing the game. I think that ultimately what's also going to happen is, eventually, if Victor Wembanyama has the career that a lot of us think that he's going to have and ends up one of the all-time greats, this game probably ends up being one of those little notes in his version of the Last Dance documentary, where you go, oh, this was one of those moments where Victor kind of figured it out, and where he really started to make that full-on star turn in the NBA in his rookie season, despite his team not being good. I mean, this was just an utterly dominant performance for him. I thought he looked fantastic, like all across the board. Wembanyama, I'll talk about him just a little bit more later, but ends with 40 points, 20 rebounds, 7 assists, 2 steals, and a block. I mean, just a crazy night for him. But I think we should probably talk about a different crazy night for the Knicks first, which was Jalen Brunson, who scores 61 points, second most points in franchise history, behind Carmelo Anthony's 62, almost 10 years ago now. I think maybe it must have been dangerously close to 10 years ago on the day, because it was 2014 when Melo scored the 62. Brunson shoots 25 of 47 overall, 5 of 13 from three. Also managed to work 6 assists in there, despite taking well over half the team shots. It was absolutely insane, the sheer volume of shots that he wound up taking for the Knicks in this game. 25 field goals made is a Knick record. That eclipsed Carmelo Anthony, who I think had 24. He had the third most points in a quarter by a Knick with 24 in the third. That's behind Julius's 26-point quarter and Melo's 25-point quarter. And then just the stuff that Brunson was able to do in this game. I mean, obviously, if he's scoring that many points, you figure he's going to be kind of digging into the whole bag and doing everything that he does as a player. But I mean, really just a little bit of everything that you ever see out of Jalen Brunson here. He was hitting pull-up threes, step-back threes, spot-up threes. I mean, out of those 5, there was, I don't think really 2 that looked exactly the same. There was, I think 2 of them he caught kind of like off the catch, like in motion, and then just kind of spotted up and took them. But for the most part, like all very different looking shots. Then just his dribble moves and freezing his defender. Now, look, like it was noted a bunch of times on the broadcast by Breen and Clyde that obviously the Spurs are like the youngest team in the NBA. This is like the youngest team that Greg Popovich has ever coached. Like they're young, they're raw. That even if there's good defenders on the team, they're not necessarily going to be the best at guarding someone with the bag that Jalen Brunson has. Even with all that said, I thought that he really just, I mean, his dribble moves, his hezzies, his head movements to draw the defender away were just on another level in this game. I mean, he didn't even have to really go into that many moves so many times because there were so many times where he would get the ball and then just sort of like start dribbling, freeze for just a second, turn his head one way. Defender would just be completely rooted in place, and then Brunson would just explode by them, get all the way to the hoop. That happened a number of times in this game. He hit a one that stood out to me as far as a singular play, and I keep highlighting their connection, but had a really nice backdoor cut off a give and go with Isaiah Hartenstein at one point. Just like got the ball to him and then just immediately made a quick cut. And his defender was not ready for that. Clearly wasn't thinking, oh, Jalen Brunson's about to cut to the hoop, and oh yeah, Isaiah Hartenstein is good enough to toss him a pass that'll make that work. But that happened. That was a fantastic play. The runners and floaters were super on point, which you would expect. And then just the stopping on a dime was crazy. I mean, just the ability of him to drive in full steam into the lane and then just stop at the top of the key and pop for a mid-range jumper. It allowed him to create space against like everybody. I mean, he even created space against Victor Wembanyama in this game, which is insane. A guy that is like maybe 6'2", dealing with a guy who's 7'6" with one of the most insane physical profiles and wingspans that we've ever seen in the NBA, and the ability to totally get after you and block, whatever shot and whatever. It's crazy that Brunson was able to create that space and make that happen. He also is finishing through contact at the rim. And I'm going to try not to belabor this point too much, but I didn't mention yet, he only took 6 free throws in this whole game, which for someone to score 61 points with only 6 free throws, I mean, that underscores why he wound up, hitting 25 field goals in this game to get to that 61 points, because he had to. Like, most of the time, you're not going to have that many field goals or that many field goals attempted when someone scores that much, because you figure they're probably locked in enough and getting inside enough. And, obviously they're a superstar, because only superstars score that many points, that they're going to be getting superstar calls. And he didn't. I mean, it was pretty bad. I don't like to blame refs for anything, but I genuinely, if Brunson was getting the foul calls that he should have gotten, we might have seen a 70-point game out of Jalen Brunson in this game, because he was destroying the Spurs. I mean, especially in the second half, the second that third quarter, opening buzzer sounded and they started going, he was off to the races, and he was getting inside at will. And I mean, look, it wasn't exactly like he was getting like smacked every time he took a shot, but I went back and watched every single one of his attempts, and there are so many make or miss where the defender was very up in his space, and in a way that most of the time players get calls. I'll just say it that way, especially star players. Like, if it was like James Harden, he probably would have shot 15 free throws in this game. Or if it was, whatever, Giannis or Jason Tatum or, Jimmy Butler, like, you name it. Like, if it was like pretty much any other player other than Jalen Brunson, I think they get 15 free throw attempts in this game. And unfortunately, it was Jalen Brunson, and so he did not get that treatment. But yeah, I mean, it was a fantastic game for him. And I just thought that I would say, like, I don't think that anyone isn't, but just in case you're not, I think we really just got to take a second to appreciate what we have in this guy. Like, he is just now entering the prime of his career. Like, he's 26 years old now, I believe, at this point, perhaps turning 27 during the season. But those years, like 25 to like 29, is generally most players' prime. And so we're about to see 2 more years of prime Jalen Brunson like this, probably, if not longer, because I honestly think he's got a game that's going to age pretty well. It's so predicated on craftiness, and, he needs that little bit of burst, to get around his defender or whatever when he pulls those dribble moves and stuff. But so much of what he does is just based on being more crafty and, having a better plan than the defender. And that's never going to go away. And that's only going to get better as he gets older. And so I just think we need to just take a minute to just like sit, even in this loss. I found myself initially, I was disappointed. I was annoyed. I was like, oh, I really wish that, the Knicks had won this game. That would have made it so much better. Keep that winning streak going. Just keep the magic going as it was. But there's still some magic to this, man. I mean, it's rare that you find a player in the NBA or have a player on your team in the NBA that can put up 60 points on a given night. I think there's maybe 8 to 10 guys like that in the NBA. I think that it's even less the amount of guys you can find in the NBA that can score 50 plus twice in a season, which Jalen Brunson just did. So I don't know. I think even despite the loss, it's one loss. Things are still so good for the Knicks right now. They're fighting for potentially a 2, 3, 4 seed. They're going to have home court advantage in the first round. No matter what, the match was going to be hard. The East is just really hard, period. So they're going to have their work cut out for them. But man, it's really good to be a fan of this team right now and to get to root for this guy, on a nightly basis. And I figured I'd end the Jalen Brunson segment with some little stats from Tommy Beer, who, if you don't follow him on Twitter, it's at Tommy Beer. And he's, I say this endearingly, he's the king of finding the most oddball stat combinations and saying, this guy on the Knicks is the only guy, along with these one or two other like Hall of Famers, to ever put up this stat line. But these ones are still pretty fun. So per Basketball Reference from Tommy Beer here, complete list of players to make 25 plus field goals and commit 2 or fewer turnovers in an NBA game: Michael Jordan on January 16th, 1993, and Jalen Brunson, and that's it. And then the complete list of all players with 20 plus 2-pointers and 5 plus 3-pointers in a single game: Kobe Bryant on January 22nd, 2006, and Jalen Brunson last night. That's it. So all that says to me is very 90s and early 2000s type game for Jalen Brunson in that one. Lots of middies, not a lot of foul calls thanks to physicality. Some 3-pointers made as well. I think that was pretty solid. So hats off to Jalen Brunson. It was a fantastic game. And I'm happy to be able to see a lot more of them. But I have to talk about Donte DiVincenzo too, who broke Knicks history in this one, set the 3-point record officially, which we figured would probably happen, along with some of the other players in this game: Deuce McBride, Mitchell Robinson, so on and so forth. So I'll get into that in just a second. But first, I got to let you know about our friends over at eBay Motors. Passion, drive, and patience. What brings home the winning trophy is also what keeps your ride or die alive. eBay Motors has everything you need to maintain your vehicle and level it up to peak performance, from superchargers, roof racks, exhaust kits, LED headlights, and more. Whether you're into speed, power, or style, eBay Motors has got you covered. With over 122 million parts for your number one ride or die, you'll always find exactly what you're looking for. And with eBay Guaranteed Fit, your part is guaranteed to fit your ride every time or your money back. Because with eBay Motors, you're burning rubber, not cash. With all the parts you need at the prices you want, it's easy to turn your car into the MVP and bring home that win. So keep your ride or die alive at ebaymotors.com. Eligible items only. Exclusions apply. eBay Guaranteed Fit only available to U.S. customers. All right, and I'm back in to keep talking through this game. And hey, you thought we were done with Knicks history? No, Jalen Brunson, career high and second most points in a game by a Knick. Maybe slightly more consequential, though not quite as captivating, was Donte DiVincenzo breaking the Knicks single season 3-point record. So Donte ends with 20 points, 7 of 13 shooting, 6 of 12 from 3, and with 245 3-pointers made this season, still with 10 games to go. 10 games, I believe, to go, or 9, I forget. He's now the sole holder of the most 3-pointers in a season by a Knick. So safe to say he's going to pad that record out quite a bit. And hopefully he'll hold the 1, 2, 3, 4 spots or something by the time that this deal with the Knicks is done. Because if we could just get more and more years of what he's given us this year, that would be pretty fantastic. I got to say, it's nice to have that record associated with a team that will want to remember now too. Thanks for your service, Evan Fournier. You had that one really good 3-point making season. The Knicks as a whole were not very good that season, and it was a very forgettable year, and one that most of us don't want to think about all that often, especially looking in the history books, especially considering he unseated John Starks from there, who's like one of the most beloved players in Knicks history. So it's good to see Donte DiVincenzo snatch that record back, associated with a season that most of us will want to remember, not the one bad season in between all the good seasons with Julius Randle on the team. And then of course Jalen Brunson in the following years, and the squad that we have now. But yeah, thanks Evan Fournier, but also happy to see you dethroned. But Devo, I thought basically went back to mostly just being a spot up guy in this game, but that was basically exactly what the team needed of him. So I certainly wasn't disappointed in that at all. I would actually love if that's kind of what he keeps doing all the way through the end of the regular season. Like, I think, like, you don't want to have Jalen Brunson having to do quite as much as he did in this game on a regular basis, because him taking like over half the team's shots is not sustainable on a night to night basis. Of course, he was cooking in this one, so you kind of just kept feeding it to him because why not? But ideally, it would be nice to have DiVincenzo maybe looking to attack off the dribble a little bit sometimes. Like, just keep defenders honest that way. Don't let them close out on you quite so hard because they have to defend that drive to the hoop and whatever. And we know that he has that in his bag. So like, I think that's worth doing, from time to time, but also just getting himself in a position where he can shoot like 50% from three for the rest of the year and do that on a high volume in spot up situations. Like, that'll be really valuable in the playoffs. We saw last year that was kind of the thing that the Knicks really needed once the playoffs hit was just spot up 3-point shooting around Jalen Brunson, and they didn't have it. Like, as much as Quentin Grimes put on an act of that, like he wore the confidence of a guy that can shoot a good percentage from three in the playoffs. He just didn't. I mean, he shot like 20 something percent from three in those playoffs against the series against the Heat, especially. Granted, he also played really good defense. Like, I'm not trying to like crap on what Grimes did last year, but the reality was that the reason that things didn't work out for the Knicks in some of those games was that Grimes was the only guy considered credible shooting from three for them and couldn't put them in. And now you have Donte DiVincenzo, who, again, if he can simplify his roll down, obviously he did what he had to, filling in while, all the guys were out and scoring all those points and, coming through for the Knicks when things were tough with all the injuries. But if he could sort of work on simplifying his roll down and distilling it down to just being a shooter, I think that's going to be really valuable. Just do what you're good at and keep it up into the playoffs. And, then the Knicks will have a really dangerous guy out there at the starting two guard. Hopefully you get OG Anunoby back soon. And then you've got another guy that can hit the three really reliably. And then all of a sudden, Jalen Brunson is operating with even more space than he had in this game. And things are going to look really, really good. So I hope that that's kind of what's going on for DiVincenzo there. And then if I want to highlight someone else, I'd say probably Deuce McBride. I think, it was a pretty lackluster rest of the score sheet for most of the Knicks, if I'm being completely honest. Like, Brunson took 47 out of 110 shots, which is nuts. And then you had, DiVincenzo took 13 shots, made 7 of them. And then beyond that, like, most of the guys on the team shot like 33% or worse. It was not fantastic. Like, Josh Hart shoots 4 of 13. Hartenstein shot 3 of 7, so it's slightly better. Deuce McBride was 3 of 9. Mitchell Robinson 3 of 9. Precious made 3 of 3, but all in all didn't have a great game. I'll talk about him in a second. Bojan Bogdanovic was 2 of 7, and Shake Milton was 1 of 2. So like, there's not a ton to write home about with this team other than the obvious guys. But Deuce McBride, I think made a good impact in this game. I think that he's one of those guys where it's almost like with Emmanuel Quickley, where when Quick was with the Knicks, he would have off shooting games, and yet you would say he was still affecting the game positively. And I think that was definitely the case for Deuce in this one too, and has been, to be fair. I just use Quickly as the example because we used to talk about this more with him. But like, I think he finally came down to earth a little bit, had a less than stellar shooting game, but he still managed to really affect the game with his defense. He had 4 steals, and all of them seemed really consequential. Like, none of them were just kind of whatever steals. Like, he had one where he got a steal for a breakaway jam. He had another one where he just like picked the pocket clean at one point around midcourt. I think it was Malachi Branham they took it from, I forget, but just poked it away from the Spurs player right at midcourt and just snatched it back and created an opportunity for the Knicks that way. And then the best one to me, took the ball like right out of Wemby's hands late in the fourth in transition. And it was kind of hilarious, if I'm being honest. Like, it was like, because Wemby's so tall and his dribble is so high and Deuce is on the shorter end of the spectrum, like, it almost to me looked like he just basically scooted himself under Wemby's hand while he was dribbling, like, just fully like limboed in there a little bit and just kind of like got in and just took the ball right out of Wemby's hand by just basically being small enough to do that. in transition there and just grabbed the ball and then just went with it the other way. And then it eventually finds its way to Donte DiVincenzo for a three. So he created a 5-point swing right there. So that was his defense paying huge dividends. And I feel like that was just kind of what he managed to do the whole game. He also played almost 46 minutes again. So like I know this guy is young and he's spry and he's in great shape, but I do feel like he's kind of due for a little bit of rest soon. So for that reason, I really hope OG Anunoby manages to get back soon. And then hopefully Julius Randle shortly thereafter. Like, I mean, I know that doesn't directly affect Deuce, but it sort of does because then he won't have to start anymore and he can go back to maybe playing like 20 minutes off the bench or something. But yeah, it's a little rough right now. I think that minute load is I I don't want to say that that's what's getting to him because they had a couple days off or whatever, and it was like a road trip and stuff like that. But you figure at a certain point things are going to hit the wall, and you don't want that to happen because Deuce has been so valuable with what he's been able to give you. But yeah, I want to talk about Mitchell Robinson a little bit too. Talk about Precious Achua and Bojan Bogdanovic and the fact that they had kind of rough games, and then give a little shout out to Wemby, who again was quite the spectacle to watch in this game. So I'll do all that in just a sec. But first, I got to let you know about our good friends over at Nissan. Are you the kind of driver that likes to push things a little further? Do you ever wonder what adventure could be around the next corner? Well, our friends at Nissan have a lineup of SUVs with the capabilities to take your adventure to the next level. How about the 2024 Nissan Rogue? It's perfect for city drives and great escapes. So maybe you want to drive around the city and then go up to the Catskills or something. You could do that. And you can do it all with class exclusive Google built in as your always updating assistants calling for almost anything. Gone are the days of connecting your phone. Google Assistant, Google Maps, and Google Play Store built right into the 12.3-inch HD touchscreen infotainment system. That's a big screen. The 2024 Rogue is the perfect midsize crossover for your next adventure. Or if that's not your speed, maybe you want to check out the 2024 Nissan Armada. That'll change what you expect from a full-size SUV. Picture a rugged 4x4 that can seat up to 8 in first-class luxury and style. And you can tow bigger and explore further in the 2024 Armada. So take the Nissan Rogue, Nissan Pathfinder, or Nissan Armada and go find your next big adventure. Shop nissanusa.com. And the show is also brought to you by Fire TV. Fire TV is your destination for sports, from live games to highlights to in-depth analysis. Fire TV offers amazing viewing experiences with smart TVs, as well as the Fire TV stick that you can plug into your existing TV that provides access to millions of movies and TV episodes, as well as free and live TV. Whether it's opening weekend for baseball or the college basketball tournament, you're going to want to have Fire TV. Fire TV recently created Fire TV channels to deliver a constant supply of the latest videos from your favorite sports brands, all for free. And that includes all of us at Locked On and most of the big pro leagues and college conferences as well. Fire TV channels let you dive into all the game analysis, highlights, and more to keep up to date on all the latest in the world of sports, March Madness, the NBA, the MLB, and lots more. Not to mention great news, entertainment, gaming, travel, and cooking videos as well. So check out Fire TV channels on Fire TV and Alexa devices. And if you haven't checked out Fire TV channels, you should. Trust me on this. To learn more, visit amazon.com/lockedonfiretv. All right, and I'm back in to get through the last points of this game. We've talked about the best parts already, and other than that, I feel like it's about time to maybe start putting this game behind us. But I want to talk about Mitchell Robinson next, and I think the first thing I got to highlight is there was another weird call in this game, and I hate to keep bringing it up, but like, I don't know, man. Like, I'm starting to get weird feelings. I'm getting like uncomfortable feelings in my stomach about like sports gambling and how it's affecting the NBA at this point. Um, Especially with the Jonte Porter thing just coming out recently about him affecting his own lines potentially and potentially, making money off of getting out of games early and hitting on his unders and everything else. And then I just feel like officiating has been really weird this year. And there's another weird call that just kind of raised my eyebrows. And it's bad if even Mike Breen is looking at it and immediately goes, "Why was there a call there?" Like Breen is normally pretty quick to defend the officials and to, kind of like hand wave away any complaints with anything officiating and just say like the players got to stop complaining. Mistakes happen, blah blah blah. It's in the heat of the moment, this, that, the other. And yet even he was like, "I don't understand that call." Victor Wembanyama late in the game goes to the floor. Mitchell Robinson goes down, grabs at the ball, gets a jump ball. And then it's Victor versus Mitch, they go for the jump. It looks totally normal. I didn't see anything that was abnormal to me about the jump. Obviously, they were both passionate about getting the ball, and then Mitch gets it, swipes it to his left. It goes to Josh Hart, and then whistle blows. I just they called it a jump ball violation, and I was like, I don't know about that. Like that seems a little weird. Like it looked just like a jump ball to me, and you're calling this with 30 seconds left in overtime when the Knicks are down 2 and about to get a transition opportunity. I don't know. It was a little strange to me. And going along with the fact that Jalen Brunson again only gets 6 free throw attempts for this whole game, it reads weird. And I don't want to, I certainly don't want there to be anything amiss in the NBA, but it feels like every third game or so this year, and I'm sure the other team fan bases feel this way too, but it feels like every third game or so you're running into something this year where it's like, why did that just happen? Like, why did they make that call at this time? It seems really weird to just decide to get on that horse at this particular moment and make that call. So I don't know. I feel for Mitch on that one, though. He took to Twitter after the game to basically say, hey, I'll accept that I didn't play my best today. I could have done more to help the team win, blah, blah, blah. But like, you know, that I don't get that call. And I didn't get that call either. I thought it was really bizarre. And it really, the Knicks wound up defending the rest of that possession out. And they forced, the missed shot and they got the ball back with like 20 seconds left. But that's like it took like 14 seconds off the clock or something. That whole thing gave the Spurs back the ball again, and then the Knicks had to get another defensive stop to be able to get the ball back and then have their chance to do something with 20 seconds left. I don't know. It rubbed me the wrong way. But Mitch ends up with 7 points, 12 rebounds, 7 offensive boards in 20 minutes. I thought it was a good showing for him. He's still, the only little bit of rust, I said in the last show, he didn't really show any rust, but that's sort of a lie. Like the little bit of rust he's showing is on offense. I think, it's like the handling the ball, handling passes, stuff like that still looks a little shaky. And I'm sure that'll come back, but like defensively and rebounding wise, I thought he was good. I thought that he did a pretty good job of challenging Wemby as much as one possibly could on a game where like one of these, one of the guys that is projected to be the next like future of the league is having like one of his best nights as a rookie. There's only so much you can do, but later on, I thought that Mitch did a decent job of keeping him somewhat uncomfortable in those 20 minutes. And Isaiah Hartenstein had fouled out in like 28 minutes in this game too. So it was definitely needed for Mitch to come in there and do that. But I also just thought that he was kind of the best option down the stretch of the game. Like he had more size to bother Wemby. And like I'll talk about Wemby in a second and just how like comically huge he is. But like, yeah, I don't know. I thought that it was a good game for Mitch. And then also of note, he did come up kind of lame in, I forget if it was the fourth quarter or overtime where it first started showing, but he looked like he was limping a little bit and yet still was just gutting through it. After the game, he proclaimed, I ain't no B word after the game. So I guess he's feeling all right. But yeah, I hope that is the case because, that would be all we need is have another guy come back, put together a couple good games, look like he's back to himself, and then just like with OG, have to go back out, for more surgery, rehab and maintenance or whatever. So I hope Mitch is all right. Then as far as the rough games, I didn't really bring up like Josh Hart. I thought was fine. Not his best shooting day, but gave you what you would expect out of him. Shake Milton got a couple minutes, which was interesting in the first half. I thought he was fine. And then I guess other than that, I've pretty much covered everybody except for Precious Achiuwa and Bojan Bogdanovic. And yeah, it was pretty rough for both those guys. And I've been the biggest Bojan supporter, and I mean I've loved Precious too, but yeah, it was pretty rough for both of them. I just don't think this was the matchup for Precious. Like you can't afford to be undersized when you have a dude like Wemby out there, and who Wemby played 40 minutes, which is also kind of irregular. Like he's definitely been a lot of people have been criticizing Greg Popovich for kind of keeping him on a little bit of a minutes leash this year. So you can't afford to be small when you've got Wemby playing 40 minutes on the other side. So I think that was part of the issue for Precious, but pretty ugly, dude. I mean, in 16 minutes, he was a team low minus 30, which is just seems unfathomable. I mean, that's so bad. Like the next lowest was actually Bogdanovich at a minus 16. who I'm going to talk about in a second. But a minus, it makes you wonder how that's even possible that he managed to be a minus 30 in 15 minutes and 40 seconds. Because I didn't think he played that bad, but clearly something is not working when he's out there. Then Bojan Bogdanovic, I think definitely needs to be. I think my main note from this one was that, and this has been the case lately. He needs to be in a scoring rhythm to be a positive at this point, and he was not in a scoring rhythm, and he was thus not a positive for the team in this game. And he's still just not really integrated in this offense yet. So it's kind of a conundrum. Like, he's going to hurt you if he's not being more featured on offense and in a good rhythm, and yet it's hurting you to play him the minutes you are right now. So how can you justify moving his minutes up? So he's not going to be able to find that rhythm without being given more play time and, I guess a more defined role. And I guess that's kind of the problem. Like, I will say, if, considering we're talking about Precious right now, like, I think Precious's first 10 or so games, he seemed borderline unplayable at times too. And then things just kind of like came together and he was awesome. And I don't think it's any coincidence that he figured that all out when he was thrust into a role where he had to start playing like 40 minutes a game. We've never had that with Bogdanovic, and we're also like 20 games into Bogdanovic's Knicks tenure. I think it's exactly 20 games right now. So if things don't start changing soon, like, yeah, he might. I know that Burks has been, hurt or sick or whatever for the last couple games, but he's going to start going the way of where Burks was headed, which is potentially out of the rotation. Once this team is fully healthy, which is crazy to think because it seemed like such a coup to get him at the trade deadline, in addition to Burks. So I don't know. Then I'll just quickly one more time shout out Victor Wembanyama, 40 points, 20 rebounds, 7 assists, 2 steals, a block. It's just crazy watching this guy play. Like, everything that he does just seems out of this world, and unlike anything we've ever seen before. But the thing that really stood out to me is, like, Isaiah Hartenstein and Mitchell Robinson are like large individuals. They are big dudes. Like, I had the pleasure of covering the Knicks in person before COVID, and I stood in a locker room with Mitchell Robinson, and I'm 6'4" in regular life, which means that, like, as a normal person, I'm tall. And standing next to Mitch made me feel like a child, man. I mean, he is huge. And so then to see him standing next to Victor Wembanyama, who's standing like a full half of a head length higher than him, and standing next to Isaiah Hartenstein with like his entire head almost clearing Hartenstein's head when they're both standing up straight. Absolutely crazy to me, man. I mean, he is I say this in the most endearing way possible, total freak of nature. I mean, and the fact that he has the skills that he does, the fact that he can pull up from 3 from 4 feet behind the line and can a 3, and then also get inside and use finesse to get around you and get a layup. And the fact that he's still pretty skinny and has not really put on his NBA frame at all yet, and still is strong enough to get 20 rebounds against one of the best rebounding teams in the NBA in the Knicks. Just a crazy performance for him. I feel good for the kid. I'm glad that he had a really good performance. That I think he needed this in his rookie year. I just wish it had come against the Knicks and that the Knicks have been able to get this win. Or that honestly, if the Knicks had won, this would have made it that much better. It would have felt like in 2012-13 when Steph Curry put up 50 in MSG, but the Warriors still lost, right? Like, that would have been the ideal outcome to me for this. I think is Wemby puts up this awesome performance. We get to say, man, I remember when Wemby did that against the Knicks. Good thing Jalen Brunson had 63 or whatever though, and the Knicks won that game, and blah blah blah. Like, that would have been a much more fun way to remember this. Instead, it'll be like, oh, remember when Wemby spoiled Jalen Brunson's career high 61 points and spoiled the night when Donte DiVincenzo got the 3-point crown. But anyway, is what it is. At any rate, we'll have more for you guys next week as the Knicks continue their march toward the playoffs here. And of course, if any news breaks, especially with those injuries, hopefully we'll start hearing some updates soon. We'll have them right here for you on Locked On Knicks. But until then, thank you all for listening, and I'll talk to you soon. Peace out, everybody.